Hi, we're at the 2019 Wolfram Technology Conference. I'm Sylvia Haas, and I'm Wolfram Alpha on Twitter, and this is my co-host.
I'm Shruti Ponte, and I was a student at Wolfram Camp in 2019.
And we're here with Andrew Steinacher, who's a lead developer at Wolfram, and he's going to be talking about his Arduino gas mileage tracker.
So, Andrew, what do you do at Wolfram?
I work for Wolfram Alpha, and I work on the food and nutrition content normally. But I also do some data science projects on the side as well. So, yeah.
So, what brings you to this conference?
I'm here to present a couple data science projects. Just like this one. So just ready to show people how to use Wolfram language for data science projects and other things too.
That's awesome.
So, what is your Arduino gas mileage tracker?
Right, so I have an Arduino that is connected to my car's CAN bus, or the OBD2 port as it's called, and it just listens to all of the traffic that's on there. And it's a huge fire hose of data, and I've been really interested in it. I actually got started in it when I was in high school. I always had to keep track of my gas mileage to be able to know how much it was costing me to drive everywhere and manage things that way. And so I had a spreadsheet that I just would punch stuff into and keep track of things that way. And so I always thought it was really fascinating to keep track of that stuff. It wasn't really all that helpful and required a lot of manual effort to keep track of. So a couple of years ago, there's a blog post that I wrote where I used the Wolfram Cloud to be able to create a web form that I could access on my phone. And every time I got gas, I would just punch in the numbers, and it would dump the contents into a data bin. And I could do analysis on it and make some nice, automated, updated reporting and that kind of stuff as well.
So how long have you been tracking?
For quite a while now. I think around mid-2016, I want to say. So several years now on that stuff. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Can we have a look at it?
Yeah, absolutely. So these are just two plots right here that I've done on some of the data. So as you can see here, basically this is the gas mileage. I measure both the computed and the actual gas mileage, if you want to think of it that way. The computed stuff is what my car has, so there's a little display that it thinks what the gas mileage is for the trip. I believe that's the blue line, and the actual one is the lower one, which is the orange-colored one. And so they're mostly on track. So I kind of was interested in finding out how accurate that meter was, and it turns out it's pretty accurate. Sometimes it's a little optimistic, but for the most part they agree. For the most part there, and I was also interested in seasonality and that kind of stuff to see when it's cold outside, does it get worse and that kind of stuff. And so you can kind of see a little bit of that in the colder times. You can see kind of down the beginning of the year, it gets pretty chilly, and so then I have to let the car warm up more, and things are not quite as efficient that way. So, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So do you have more examples down here?
Yeah, so I keep track of the price and where they are and that kind of stuff, and this is kind of nice because it's nice and fine-grained, and it's fairly low-tech in some sense because you can just put it into a web form. But I knew that that display that was in my car was keeping track of much more information than that, and I really wondered, how am I going to get to that information, because I really want that. I want to know on a per-trip basis. So I did a bunch of research, and I built a little circuit here with an Arduino. You can kind of see it here, so this is sort of an Arduino sandwich, as it might be called. There's an Arduino on the bottom and a CAN bus shield in the middle, and then at the very top there's an SD card shield. And basically what I do is I plug into this port here, where with this DB9 port here, and that connects to my car's OBD2 port. I think all cars newer than 2008 have to have that port that's underneath the steering wheel on the side a little bit. And basically they communicate over a protocol called CAN, where basically it's just like two wires that all of the computers in the car can communicate with. And the nice thing about it is that all devices can hear all devices' messages. So I can just passively listen and just kind of sniff the traffic that's on there and log it straight to the SD card. I log it in binary as fast as I can, because it turns out there's a lot of data being thrown around, so I've had to do some tricks to speed things up.
So how much data do you have?
So far, since I've been gathering data for, gosh, probably a year and a half or so now, I've probably got about 16 gigabytes of binary data. So it's actually it might be more like 20 at this point. It's been a while since I've checked the actual number, but it's definitely a few thousand trips for sure.
Okay.
So it's pretty large that way. So as I was doing this, I was manually ingesting the files and kind of manually building time series and things like that out of them. But instead, I found it easier to write something in the Wolfram language to be able to programmatically do this. So I built a little tool called CAN-GUI. So CAN is, the protocol. And so it's a GUI, so it's a little interactive interface. And so what I've done here is I've built something where you can select a date of all the trips that I have, and you can choose the dates and times for trips. So for example, if I just pick this one on, we'll just choose Pi Day for now.
Cute.
And you can select a specific thing that I've found, like here, for example, the accelerator pedal, and it will dynamically update this little display here. I know it's not the prettiest of displays, but it was much faster than manually moving things around. And so you can see the messages that are there on this side and the frequency at which they're done. And basically, there's no manual that comes with any of this. It's all a lot of reverse engineering kinds of things. So what I've got is a little thing here that allows me to punch in what message ID is there. I can give it a name, and I can write a function that's able to take in the bytes of the content there, because each one sends about 8 bytes of data, and then I can attach units to them. I can resample them at certain rates, draw ranges and that sort of thing to find all kinds of cool stuff. So like that's my gas pedal information. Probably most interesting that I found was the fuel flow, which with some tools that I wrote to be able to manipulate bytes in different orders, whether they're for unsigned integers or signed integers, kind of very low-level stuff. Once you can play with some of that stuff, I've got things hooked up here. So with this, just with the little factor in front that I've found, fits really well with the fuel flow. So for example, here you can kind of see what it looks like in terms of gallons per hour for a given trip there. The nice thing is I'm able to find individual wheel speeds as well. And so if I can use the speedometer, I can actually divide the two, and I have to have some factors in there to actually correct it. To get it right, and I clip it so that it'll actually, not give me a million miles to the gallon if I'm coasting. But you can kind of see when I stop, my gas mileage, caps out. But if I'm coasting, it caps out at, say, 100. That seemed like a reasonable number to choose. So yeah, there's quite a lot of information here. It's a lot of experimentation and research to go try and find things, including things like the engine oil temperature and stuff like that, as an example. So I found this was a lot faster to work with than manually doing everything. Point and click was much easier to work with, and it wasn't too hard to do with dynamic module. So.
That's awesome.
So, how would the average person be able to use this project?
Right, so if anyone is interested in actually doing CAN sniffing, they would have to, hook up a similar device like I have to their car. Luckily, most cars operate on CAN and, operate at about the same speed, so it's not too terribly hard to listen to. As far as the actual data coming in, it differs from car to car and manufacturer to manufacturer. They might have a little trouble that way, but if they choose the same format that I've built for it, then yeah, this tool would be accessible to others, and it's available on GitHub and other things too. So.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, if you get like a new car, are you going to be sad that you're not going to be getting the same amount of data? Or are you going to be...
I might be getting more, actually.
Okay.
If it operates on CAN, I think all I have to do is just plug it in, and then I would just have to relearn where all the information is. So, yeah.
So, do you have any future steps or future plans for this project?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I've done recently is I built an entity store to handle all of my trips. So these are like actual entity objects that I've used with properties that are aligned to those things that I've found. So here, for example, this is gas and brake pedal kind of together, as you can kind of see, to keep the brakes on when I don't have the gas on, and so on and so forth for the most part. So I've also done some other things and aligned it to my the form that I was mentioning earlier, and it turns out they agree pretty well. So the blue line is actually the line of fit on those. We can kind of see they're a little off in a few places, but that has to do with not quite perfect things, or if I can't always have it plugged in or running and that kind of stuff. So I've done some neat analysis with like trends per month, and I've started to collect GPS data for a while. It's not super detailed, so you can kind of see like a single trip here. That you know, kind of shows a single trip, but the red sort of shows the accuracy, so it's not super accurate. But I have been collecting a lot of data on various places and as I travel around and stuff like that. And the nice thing is I can zoom in on like specific areas much more closely. So you can see on Champaign here that's a nice grid, so I can use these rectangles to kind of see everything from there. So yeah, in the future I think what I want to do is investigate more messages, try and figure out what they are, try and live stream them onto a computer so I can get more feedback, and then, you know, do nicer things with like detecting when someone's driving, whether it's me or someone else, and learn driving patterns and analyze the actual paths through which I drive. So yeah.
So from doing all this, like, did you learn something that you weren't expecting to about your driving patterns?
Not really so much. I think I've found that I take almost the exact same route, much more. But yeah, definitely a creature of habit in some ways. But yeah, I've always wondered some intersections if they're really slow, and it turns out they are quite a bit slower than others. So
That's so interesting. Yes, thank you so much for joining us today.
No problem.
This was really awesome.
Yeah, great. Thanks.
Yeah.